All right, guys, this is the EVELO Atlas, and it's their take on a premium touring e-bike with a style and aesthetic that leans almost into city cruiser with things like the Dutch-style handlebars up top. But the reason why I say premium is because this has an Enviolo continuously variable transmission for automatic shifting. It has a Gates carbon belt drive, which means no grease, no chain, no mess, no noise, and almost no maintenance at all. And then an M600 mid-drive motor that pumps out 120 Newton meters of torque. So aside from those premium features, we still have all the bells and whistles like a front suspension fork, front to back fenders, lighting. Let's take a good look at all the specs and features and see what makes this the premium e-bike from EVELO. All right, guys, let's talk about the basics of the EVELO Atlas. Now, this is priced at $4,150, so we're definitely stepping into that premium price territory. And as we go through, we'll talk about why that starts to get justified with some of these more premium components and features that this bike has to offer. Now, this bike is built to UL 2849 and 2271 standards, as well as it is considered, like I said in the opening, a touring e-bike. They say this is a kind of go anywhere and do anything type of e-bike. Obviously, that's going to come with some limitations. I wouldn't take this down single track and mountain bike courses, but this is definitely something you could go tour out on gravel roads and some light off-road stuff and really see a lot of area with this bike. Now, this bike comes in one frame color and one frame size. Now, this frame size fits from 5'6" up to 6'3", and the frame color is this blue color. So these are the only two options you get, which is probably the biggest limiting factors and probably one of my largest gripes about the bike is just limiting the color options and sizing options. But with that said, those are the setups for what you can buy on this bike. Now, in terms of the geometry numbers for this has a 28-inch standover height, a 46-inch wheelbase, a 21-inch reach up top, and then you have about 8 inches of adjustability here in the seat post, and then the max payload capacity, so gear, rider, and bike, is 350 pounds. Now, speaking of weight, they advertise this bike weighing 66 pounds, and I threw that up on the scale when I got this one in for testing, and this one came right to like 66 and a half, so almost dead on the money with that weight estimation, roughly a 66-pound bike. Now, in terms of wheels and tires, we have a 27.5-inch alloy wheel, and one cool thing about these wheels is, one, they're running Presto-valved tubes, which interestingly do not have removable valve cores because I was going to put some sealant inside of them or some slime inside of them, but you can't with these because they don't have removable cores, but they are Presto valve holes on the wheel. And more importantly, these are actually tubeless compatible wheels. So if you wanted to go tubeless on this bike, it does come with a set of wheels that are already ready to do that. Now, these wheels are wrapped in Schwalbe Supermoto X with green guard protection. Now, the Supermoto X is a nice commuter, almost like a moped street tire tread pattern where you have some ability to go a little bit off-road, have a little bit of grip, mainly on pavements, things like that. Wet traction, you'll still be really good. But it's a nice smooth rolling tire, and anybody who knows bike tires knows Schwalbe makes some really great tires. And so little things like this, as you see as we go through the rest of the bike, they just have some leveled up parts from front to back. Now, in terms of fenders, they say the bike comes with front to back composite fenders. When in my mind, composite, I think like a polycarbonate or a plastic for an easier way to think about it. But these are kind of a like fiberglass maybe, or maybe they're just a hard plastic that looks like a glossy metal. It's very hard to tell, but essentially we'll just say these are composite. But they don't feel like a typical plastic fender or look like one. They actually look like a metal fender, although they are some sort of composite fender. Now, if you want to add a rear rack basket, they do sell a rear rack you can put in the back, or you can buy their upgraded rear rack that actually houses a second battery for more range. That's gonna be totally up to you. But either way, whether you want a second range battery rear rack setup or just a standard platform rear rack, they do sell those as optional accessories, along with a whole slew of other things like suspension seat posts. There's just a lot of other accessories you can pick up when you buy this. Now, this bike comes with front to back lighting. The lighting is an LED headlight up front with an adjustable angle, and it's 400 lumens, so pretty bright. On the back end, we do have a tail light here that is mounted to the seat post clamp, and it's also an LED light with a braking highlight. So you have your tail light on solid, and then if you hit your brakes, you'll get a braking highlight from this light in the rear, giving you that braking indicator. Now, when it comes to things like mounting points and extra gear, we obviously have mounting points for fenders front and back because they're already on here. We have mounting points for a rear rack, which you could add one if you wanted to. And then we also have a water bottle cage mount right here at the seat tube. So you have plenty of options to kind of bring your gear with you along for the ride, just keeping everything within that 350-pound maximum payload. All right, let's talk about power delivery on the EVELO Atlas, because that's where there's some other really good, call them premium if you want to, just some really nice equipment and solid features. So I'll start in the middle here because we have a mid-drive motor. Now this mid-drive is made by Bafang. It's an M600 motor. That means it's nominally rated at 600 watts of power, but it can peak at 1200 watts and it pumps out 120 Newton meters of power. Plenty and plenty of torque, muscle, call it whatever you want, but this thing is capable, quick, and confident even climbing hills or carrying a load. It does really well in those scenarios thanks to all that muscle there in the motor. Now this has 5 levels of pedal assist and it has a throttle up top that'll take you to 20 miles an hour, and then the pedal assist will take you all the way to 28, so a true class 2, class 3 e-bike. Now, powering this motor is a 48-volt battery in the down tube, and it comes with a set of keys for off-the-bike charging, security, or storage. I'll show you how that comes off now. You'll simply enter the key into the drive side here, and there is an arrow indicator letting you know which way to turn. So I will turn that, and the battery partially drops out. I will help it out the rest of the way. Oh, don't want to knock the bike over. Now, this is a 48-volt battery. It's made to UL 2271 certification standards. This has 15 amp hours and it gives us 720 watt hours of power. Now this battery, the bike, the whole setup here has the best warranty I've ever seen in e-bikes, which is 4 years and or 20,000 miles, whichever comes first. And that's quite a bit of usage on an e-bike, and it just tells me that they stand behind the product they're making. They're not trying to upsell you 4 years of warranty. They're giving you 4 years of warranty with the purchase of the bike. It's the longest I've seen, and they have a 21-day trial period where you can send it back if you don't like it. Definitely food for thought, because when you're spending a little bit more on a bike, you want to make sure it's the right one and that they believe in their product. And to me, that's a good indicator that that's what you're getting with the EVELO Atlas. Now, in terms of range, they say this bike can get up to 60 miles with this motor combo and battery. And so I put that to the test, and I did 2 runs, one on minimum assistance, so eco mode, and one on maximum assistance in boost mode. Now in boost mode, I got 34 miles. That's basically going full speed, covering 34 miles on a relatively flat course, which was great results. Then I put it into eco mode, gave it a full recharge, and did another range test on a relatively flat course. And this time I got 48 miles. So that's significantly, or a decent amount shorter than the 60-mile estimation. And so I was trying to figure out why that was the case, because everything felt good when I rode it. But I will tell you, the data is what explains it. I had a 16.6 mile an hour average on eco mode. Now, for those of you who know or don't know or ride often, 17 miles an hour basically in eco mode is pretty darn fast. Usually those are reserved more for like 10 to 12 miles an hour. But on this bike, because it's a mid-drive, because it's a torque sensor, as you keep pedaling, even slowly with subtle assistance, you do keep moving up in speed. And eventually that kind of topped out around 17 miles an hour in eco mode. So what does that tell me? That tells me if you keep the speed closer to maybe 13 to 15 miles an hour in eco mode, you could definitely push that 60 miles. But because I just rode it naturally in eco mode, I was averaging about 17 miles an hour, that's 16.6, and that gave me a little bit less range, a little bit less efficiency. So I do think though, between 34 miles on full blast, 48 miles, nearly 50 on eco mode, kind of just riding normally. If I was to reduce that speed by just a hair, I would definitely be somewhere in the 50s, potentially at that 60-mile range. Now, to put this battery back, I'm simply gonna put it in the opposite way I got it out. So I'll put it in the bottom first, and I will slap it in back at the top. I'll hear it click, and I'll turn the key, and it locks in place. All right, let's talk about the components, drivetrain, things like that, because we're traditionally going to see a group set with a rear derailleur, some shifters up top, but this is a completely different system. It's a bit of a more high-end system. So what we have here is a Gates carbon belt drive. So we don't have a metallic chain. We actually have a carbon belt. Now this belt is rated for somewhere, depending on where you read, between about 15,000 to 20,000 miles before it ever needs any kind of service or replacing. Now, if you compare that to a traditional bike and a bike chain, that would be about 3 to 4 times longer than your typical chain is going to last, which is quite a bit of distance. And then on the plus side, there's no grease on this. There's no oil. I can touch this and I'm not gonna get black fingers like a traditional bike chain. When I ride it, the inside of my leg is not gonna get chain grease on it. This is a very clean and quiet setup. Chains have rollers, metallic parts that are kind of clicking along as they go. this carbon chain, or carbon belt, excuse me, makes no noise, has no mess, and almost no maintenance. So it's a really nice feature for those of you who don't want to hang out at bike shops all the time with just kind of quarterly or annual maintenance. This bike, as you see as we go through it, almost everything is pretty much fairly maintenance free. Now, on that same note, we do have a 55 tooth chain ring up front, and then we have this single cog in the rear for what looks like a single speed setup. But that's because we are running this to an Enviolo CVT, or continuously variable transmission, which basically means that on the go while I ride the bike, I can twist the grip shifter up there. There's no clicking motion, it's a solid fluid turn. And as I click, or as I rotate it backwards, the pedal assist, or excuse me, the tension in the pedals gets easier, like I've shifted to an uphill gear. And if I roll it forward, then it feels like I've shifted to a harder gear. It just is going to dynamically work with you as your terrain changes. And you even have a little visual indicator up on the handlebar that shows a bike on a little piece of terrain. And as you twist it, that terrain will go from flat to a curve symbol showing the bike going up it, which is what you move it to indicate you're moving up a hill. Now, some really cool things about this. Now, aside from not having a rear derailleur that's going to click into each cog on the rear end cassette, what this does, rear derailleurs have a cable that runs from the shifter through the bike to the derailleur, and it has to keep a certain amount of cable tension for that thing to properly click in and out of gears, along with the springs in the derailleur. They kind of work together through multiple moving pieces and multiple pulleys on the rear derailleur. So not only do rear derailleurs get dirty from the chain grease that goes through them all the time and grime that builds up, but they also need cable tension adjustments, high-low limit screw adjustments, basically how much the rear derailleur is going to move. And that's why often on bikes that are kind of left in garages for a bit and used only periodically, they don't ever shift quite right. They click a lot, they make a lot of noises. People have to take them into bike shops and get them adjusted pretty regularly. But a CVT like this is going to be working for the life of the bike. It doesn't need adjustment. It's a very smooth, easy process with no mess. And again, it just kind of lends to this whole theme of the bike: go further, go longer, worry less. And that's what kind of everything that shines on this bike. Now, in terms of the braking, previous versions of this EVELO Atlas had zoom brakes, and there was some feedback from customers. They didn't seem too happy with them. And at this price point, I would understand you want everything to kind of work the way it should. And what they did is they went and got some really nice upgraded Tektro Arigua hydraulic disc brakes, and these have 2-piston calipers with 180mm rotors, adjustable reach levers up top, e-motor cutoff sensors, and really, really nice modulation. They're very nice brakes. They definitely punch above their weight class compared to what we normally see on most e-bikes. On top of that, we have the saddle here. Let's take a look at that. So this is a Cell Royale Shadow Plus saddle. It's a pretty standard bike saddle, not super wide, but if you want a super wide saddle, they sell an upgraded accessory, which is the Cell Double XL Royale saddle, and that one is pretty wide and pretty deep, excuse me. So if you want that extra plush ride, wider sit bones, kind of like a big couch seat up here, you can definitely get that as one of the accessories when you check out. Now, on top of that, because it's a hardtail, so we have a front suspension fork, we have a rigid rear end, but this has a optional accessory at purchase to get a Cane Creek Thud Buster suspension seat post, so you can have a little bit of suspension in the rear end. I personally like to just air down the tires a little bit. You've got 2.8-inch tires. They have a nice wide volume. You could go a little bit lower in air and get a little bit more cushion from your tires, but all in all, the bike still rides really, really comfortably. Now, moving up front, like I talked about, we have an SR Suntour XCM suspension fork with 100mm of travel and a lockout feature, so you could lock this in place if you wanted to and unlock it for all that travel back when you're ready to use it. Now, this has 34mm stanchions. It has a lockout, like I said, and a preload adjustment, so you can kind of fine tune that spring compression rate. Now, moving up to the cockpit area, we have a 620mm wide alloy, kind of a Dutch city cruiser style handlebar that comes back to you. Comfortable, nice, gives you a nice upright seating position. It's a very relaxed, casual ride. I will say this feels a little bit narrow. I'd like to see maybe more like 680mm, because when you're taller, your arms feel a little bit narrow in this, which makes handling a little bit more twitchy, but all in all, it handles nicely. I would just like to see a little bit more leverage with a little bit wider bar, but that's kind of a small complaint in bigger terms, where everything else feels really, really good on this. Now, on both ends, we have ergonomic platform grips. We have the Enviolo twist kind of shifting adjuster here, so you can, that CVT transmission, you can roll that forward or backwards and make your pedaling pressure higher or lower. for whatever kind of terrain you're tackling. You have a push throttle on this left side, kind of a standard thumb push throttle. We have our PAS control buttons. We have our Tektro hydraulic disc brake levers here up top with adjustable reach on them. And then in the center, we have our Bafang LED color display. So let's take a closer look at that display and see what kind of features you can use in there. All right, guys, this is the home screen on the Bafang LCD color display. As you can see, it's nice and big. It's a full size, nice and big colors, fonts, so you can see your speed, battery percentage, all that's nice and clear. And then this kind of theme color profile they have on it, you can change that, and I'll show you how in just a minute. They have a couple different designs you can pick from. This is just what it was on when I got the bike, but I'll show you how you can use different themes if you want to. Now, starting up top here, we have the battery bar indicator as well as a numerical percentage to let you know exactly how much power is left. Right here in the center is the speed in miles per hour, which you can change to kilometers, and I'll show you how to do that. Down below that is the current time of day. Below that's just a little dynamic animation that as you ride and it uses power, it'll kind of make little animations that show you're using power real time. And below is going to be the current pedal assist level you're in. Now, as I tap up on that, you'll see that change, and it'll change colors of the little animation area at the same time. And when I turn it off, it goes to this unsaturated kind of black and white look. Now, if I hold the up arrow, we will turn on the headlights, which will dim the screen. And if I hold it again, that will turn it off and bring the screen brightness back up. And if you tap the power button, you can scroll through some other data information. So the first tap gives us a trip meter, about 115 miles on the bike. Odometer has about a total of 118 that we've put on it. Max speed has been almost 38 miles an hour. And your average speed, 15.6, which goes back to that range test where even in eco mode, I was still cruising over 16 miles an hour. So this bike does want to go a little bit quicker than you probably would think it does. So just something to keep in mind. If you want to push that efficiency out, keep that speed a little bit lower. Tapping it again takes us to range, but that's only when you have pedal assist on. So if I tap the on button to pedal assist level 1, it should calculate a range. Now it says 52 miles left before we run out of battery. But that continues to update dynamically as you ride the bike based on how you ride it. Now, if I tap it one more time, we get to kcal, calorie usage. Another one gives us current cadence, so the rotations per minute of the pedals while you're riding. And then time, so far we spent 437 minutes on this bike. And one more tap takes us back to the time of day. Now, to get to the advanced settings, that's where you can tweak everything you'll need to. There is no app for this bike. I will say there's a Bafang app you can technically pair to this, but it doesn't seem to do anything. So maybe in the future they'll have some updates for that. But as of now, there's no app for this bike, and nor does it really need one. Everything we need to do is right in these advanced menus. Now, to get to those, we'll hold the up and down pedal assist buttons, and that takes us to this advanced menu screen first. First option is going to be screen brightness. It's at 100%. The next option is going to be how much time passes before the bike turns off automatically, kind of a sleep mode or off mode. You can set it low, like it's at 5 minutes right now, or you can move it up to, looks like 9 minutes is the max, all the way down to no minutes or 1 minute, or have it off altogether. I'm gonna leave that at 5 minutes. So that means when that's set the way it is, I stop riding the bike, I walk inside my house. Within 5 minutes, if I forget to turn it off, it'll turn itself off. Now, tapping it again takes us down to the clock. You can have a 24-hour format, or like military time, or a 12-hour format. Tapping it again takes you to time of day if you want to reset that. And then here's where you can change the themes of that home screen. So this has kind of that round circle that we currently have. But if you want a different theme, we'll just show you the two they have. You can tap this, and it's applied there. So what we'll do is we'll hold this and we'll back out. And now you can see we have this different layout on the screen. But maybe you don't like that one, you want to try the other one. Let's take a look at the other one real quick. We'll apply that one, and then we'll back out again. And now you have this nice clean screen. So really it's just going to be what your preference is, but it's cool to see that you have just some different layout options. You just kind of pick what you prefer. So I'll go back into the advanced menu here. We'll go through all the screen selections again. Now next you can pick between 4 or 6 levels of pedal assist. I have it on 6, but you can do 4 if you want. Or excuse me, I have it on 4, but you can do 6 if you want. And if you tap it again, you can reset the trip meter. Now going down one more time takes you to other, and that's where the whole full menu system is. Those are just kind of the quick access things for daily stuff. Now you see we get 4 sub-menu tabs up top with all this information. So we'll just start with the first one, reset the trip meter. You can change between units, miles per hour, or kilometers per hour. You can turn on the service tip and it will give you reminders based on mileage or time, what kind of services the bike may need. You can change the sensitivity of the sensor on here. You can set a boot password for the bike, basically a password that if you were to have this bike with it activated in a city area and somebody got on it not knowing the password, they wouldn't be able to use any of the pedal assist. And then here you can reset your password. So I'll go back up to the top here. We'll go to the next menu. Now you can see we're in the informational menu and we have wheel size you can change, speed limit you can change. This bike does go to 28 miles an hour though. Battery information, if you want to tap that, you can get information about the battery. It's basically got 190 millivolts. I'm not sure what that is, but really you can get all your battery specs out of here if you want. Controller specs, same thing. HMI info, same thing. Same thing with sensor info. If you had any warning codes, you could go through them here, but we don't have any warning codes. And error codes, same thing, you could go through them here. These would be where you would check should you have to call service or get some help with the bike. This is where they can find out whatever diagnostic issues was going on. They can look at those codes and kind of troubleshoot what the error was. So we'll go back up here, hit return, go to the next menu. Language, you can pick from these languages here. We will go over again. And then this last one is the theme. But as you saw, this is just the 3 versions of what I already showed you, those 3 different theme types on the screen. This is just another area you can pick them. They call them sports, fashion, and technology. Not really sure what that means, but we can go in there and change those should we want to. So we'll go back to the sports theme and that is the one selected. So we'll go to return and that's all the menu options. But when we back out, we're back to that original, what they call sports theme. So you have some options on how it looks. You have all the options to mess with anything should you need to get service, check error codes, change speed limits, set passwords, auto off timer, screen brightness. You've got all the essential functions you need. So in my opinion, I'd rather just have them all right here in an easy to use menu than needing an app for my bike, which is what they've done here. And all in all, it's been really nice with no warnings or errors in any of my testing. Now that's over 100-ish miles. All right guys, we're out here on the EVELO Atlas. And the riding position on this, as you can probably guess, just based on the overall look of the bike, but especially with these cruiser, like almost Dutch cruiser style bars that sweep back really close to you, you're pretty much upright and relaxed. It's not an aggressive riding position. It's a very comfortable riding position. You're not leaned forward at all. There's no real pressure in your hands, maybe just a tad, but that's pretty much handled with these platform ergonomic grips on both sides. And it just makes for a comfortable upright riding position. But obviously that's further, emphasized with things like 2.8-inch wide tires. These Schwalbe tires, they roll nice and smooth. They can cushion some of the bumps because they're kind of a higher volume tire. And then of course you have the SR Sun Tour suspension fork up front to tackle the big bumps. So really, you're a pretty smooth ride. You do feel a little bit in the seat post, just a bit, but they offer that suspension seat post if that bothers you. But at the end of the day, it's a comfy ride. The cool thing about this is kind of like we talked about already, the belt drive, no grease, no mess, no tensioning you gotta worry about. And then the Enviolo CVT or continuously variable transmission, which you can see this little gauge here on the right. It's got a flat ground indicator, but if I turn it, it creates a hill, and the more I turn it, the steeper it gets, and bring it back, it gets flatter, and you can adjust that based on what you're physically riding on. So right now I'm on flat ground, and if I was to go to a hill, I'm just like crazy pedaling. So I'm gonna go back to flat ground because my ground is flat. But you'll see here when we get up to hills, how it kind of tackles and how you deal with hills. So you're gonna make an adjustment with your hand, but it's not shifting gears like a traditional bike. It's basically just adjusting this elevation grade on the display to match what feels right when you're going up a hill. So up ahead we have a couple small hills, or one small hill and then a bigger one in the neighborhood. We'll hit them both and we'll kind of just walk through and talk about how I'm able to use the CVT to where the riding experience just feels really normal. So I'm going to keep it in tour mode, not going to go crazy fast. And you'll see there's a small incline up ahead, and I'll definitely feel it, I'm sure, because I'm in a harder gear. Or you can anticipate it, like right now, it's starting, so I'll just go ahead and bring that up a little bit, and the pedaling stays just as easy and able to go up the hill without me getting out of breath or pushing super hard. Now the pedaling is getting a little too easy because I'm back on flat ground, so I'll just bring it back down to flat. So it feels like you're shifting gears, you're getting that kind of result of being in the right gear, but it's not really any one gear. It's not like I'm going from first to third, third to fifth, anything like that. It's just kind of this dynamic scale that you move with you based on how it feels. Right. Now let's turn into the neighborhood where we have more of like a 5 to 7% grade, but it's pretty sustained for like a quarter mile. So let's see how we'll tackle that. All right, I'm gonna keep it in tour mode. I'm already in the hill right now, so I'm gonna go ahead and adjust this to just account for a little bit of that hill. Pedaling's nice and easy. I'm maintaining my 13 miles an hour. Let's bump up the pedal assist, and you can see now we're going a lot faster. But I've got to bring the CVT down a little bit so I still have some pedaling resistance. And with a little bit of tiny effort, I can already start accelerating up this hill. So that 120 Newton meters of torque, let's see if they notice me. Yep. That 120 Newton meters of torque really is strong, especially going up a hill like this. I'm not out of breath, I'm not working hard, and I'm holding about 21 to 22 miles an hour as I go up the hill. Let's go into the neighborhood up ahead. I'll turn around, we'll come back down the hill and talk about how the brakes feel. As far as motor noise, you may be able to hear a little bit on camera. There's a little bit of motor noise there. It's subtle, it's quiet, it's not loud and overbearing, but it is present. It's not what I'd say is a silent motor, it's just a quiet motor, but certainly not loud. All right, let's go down this hill and see how the brakes feel. So we'll get up a little over 20 miles an hour. All right, so there we are, like 24 on the display, 23 on my app. Nobody is behind me. So 3, 2, 1. So nice stopping power. Not lots of modulation in these levers. Modulation being the amount of how much pressure you can apply within the braking, not just brake on, brake off, but kind of finessing that braking is what modulation is. And there's quite a bit in these levers that allows you to kind of squeeze harder without locking up the back tire, which is a really nice feature. And the lower tier you go on brakes, the less modulation you get. The higher tier, the more you get, just to give you more precise control. And these have a really nice feel. Definitely punch above their weight class in terms of like entry-level hydraulic disc brakes versus these. They do have the additional battery you can carry with this, and it does have a rear rack mount for it, which the battery and the rack mount for it would add about 9 pounds to the overall bike, but that would also double your range out to, you know, in my experience, almost 100 miles, somewhere in the 90s. So plenty of mileage you could get with a double battery, but even with the single, getting just under 50 miles, that's more than most people are going to use in a week. You know, when I ride an e-bike to work, I may charge it Sunday night. I probably ride till Wednesday or Thursday before I even need a recharge, and it's not even on this bike, that's just on a different style bike. But when you get that kind of range, roughly 50 miles, depending on how far your work is or where you're going, you could really use it a whole week before you ever even need to recharge it. But let's go back. It rides really nice. It's really smooth. There's no mystery rattles or anything, especially with that Gates carbon belt drive. But let's go back and put it on a mechanic stand, and we'll talk about some things you should consider, both positives and potential negatives about the bike that you may not see when you're looking at it on the product page. It may not be as obvious. So let's go back and do that now. All right, guys, let's talk about the EVELO Atlas more from an ownership standpoint, the things that you are going to encounter if you own this bike from kind of a maintenance, servicing, longevity standpoint. We like to point out things here that you may not be able to see in our review, or maybe definitely not see when you're looking at the product page and you get it home, you start to ride it and you realize, oh, I didn't realize it had X, Y, and Z. And maybe you like that, maybe you don't like that. These are the things we try to just highlight in this section. Now, the good news is, just an overarching disclaimer, there's really no major bad things going on here. And it kind of kicks off the likes of this bike. The likes are, we have these composite fenders that look like metal fenders. They have all the appeal of a metal fender, but they have the nice composite flexible feel. So if you bang into something, if you crash your bike, this metal fender, or excuse me, this fender is not going to immediately bend and start rattling or rust over time. It's a nice, flexible, just premium looking fender that's going to last a little bit longer and be a little bit easier to deal with than a metal fender. Now, on top of that, everything from the CVT transmission to the mid-drive motor to the carbon gates belt drive, all of these are high-end parts that have almost no maintenance, and the maintenance intervals are so far apart. Like I said, that 15 to 20,000 miles, and on a bike, that's a long time for most people. Some people, that's the life of the bike. It doesn't require a whole lot of extra maintenance, headaches, chain grease, pant stains. You just have a very clean, easy to use bike that you can ride more and think about less, and definitely spend less time at your local bike shop getting things serviced and fixed. Now, some things that I don't love about this bike that are fair to point out to you guys who are gonna spend your hard-earned money on it. First things first, the rear taillight here. I do like that it's got a taillight. I like that it's adjustable angle. I like that it's got a braking feature. When I hit the brakes, it's gonna brighten up and give the person behind me that braking indicator. All those things are good, but let's be honest, I feel like the mounting point on the clamp for the seat post quick release just feels like a bit of an afterthought. I'd prefer to see a nice, maybe fender integrated light or chainstay integrated light, or just more of a kind of beefy mount under the saddle, something that feels more permanent, more premium to match the rest of this bike. This just feels like it was kind of a last minute add-on, and I don't know how long it will last, but you could definitely end up knocking that off or bending that mount pretty easily. Now, on top of that, that 620 millimeter wide handlebar, it is sufficient. The bike handles well. It's a little narrow for my liking, and people who are on the taller end, over 6 foot, may want a little bit wider of a bar for slightly better handling. But other than that, the bike is really nice to ride, really smooth, and doesn't have any kind of headaches associated with it for just day-to-day maintenance and shifting. It's just ready to roll all the time, and that's a pretty strong feature for any bike. All right, guys, there you have it, the EVELO Atlas, a very nice kind of premium touring style e-bike. It's got everything from front to back fenders, lighting, brake lights, rack compatibility, really high-end components like the Tektro Arrigua brakes. We have the CVT Enviolo automatic transmission back here, or variable transmission. We have the carbon gates belt drive and that M600 mid-drive motor that pumps out 120 Newton meters of torque. Now, this is going to be for those who want to pay a little bit more and worry a little bit less. You can go further, you can go longer with less mess, less fuss, and less time and money spent at your local bike shop keeping it up to date and serviced, because this can basically go for quite a few years without really needing any servicing at all, except for maybe a brake bleed from time to time. And that's the beauty of a higher end bike like this, is this is going to last longer with less headaches. Now, if you have questions about this bike that I failed to answer, drop them in the comments below and I'll get you that information so you have it, so you can make a good decision. And until the next review, guys, I'll see you out on the trail.